Sodium is an essential nutrient that plays a key role in regulating fluid balance, transmitting nerve signals, and enabling muscle contractions. In the human body, the majority of sodium is located in the bloodstream and in the fluid surrounding cells. Keeping sodium levels within a healthy range is vital, since both too much and too little can lead to serious health issues. The kidneys serve as the main regulators of sodium concentration. When blood sodium rises, they promote its elimination in urine. When levels drop, they conserve sodium by limiting its excretion. This regulation relies on intricate processes of filtration and reabsorption, guided by hormonal control, most notably aldosterone, which directs the kidneys to retain sodium. Proper sodium regulation helps sustain normal blood pressure, prevents dehydration, and supports the smooth operation of many essential bodily functions.
I actually want to caution against using the word romance. To me, romance can signify a lot of passion, chaos, instability, like we see in the movies. But this isn't always healthy. Romance can be part of a relationship, but we should make sure that it's not the definitive part. To me, the three great characteristics of a relationship are: first, healthy communication. Are you able to express your needs, desires, and issues without a great deal of conflict? And is the other person open to hearing it? Number two is equality. Do you feel like an equal to your partner? Are you both putting in equal effort? And finally, number three is trust. Do you feel your partner's loyal? Are you loyal to your partner? Do you ultimately have a safe relationship? Always try to best understand your partner's specific communication styles. A lot of times we'll take it personally if we notice someone's avoiding us or they're communicating with us less frequently than we'd like. And this doesn't mean that they don't care about you, they don't respect you. This is likely how they were modeled communication as a child. Your partner's communication style typically comes from how their caregivers communicated with each other. You should feel comfortable asking your partner, how do you best handle conflict? Also, some people struggle with verbal communication. So if that's the case, you may want to ask your partner to write down what they're feeling. And this way they won't feel so overwhelmed. Finally, know that communication requires compromise. So if you have a completely different communication style from your partner, know that it's going to be a work in progress until you figure out how you're both best going to communicate. My best piece of advice would be to join like-minded groups. So, for example, if you're into dance, join a dance group. And you can find a lot of these on, something like Meetup or some sort of app. But you want to find groups that are similar to you, and then you can build a friendship from there, because typically if you're interested in something, those might be those type of people that you want to build a friendship with. One of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou, I think, can apply to friendships. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So when you're building friendships with people, they're going to show you initially who they are. So trust that. And I'm a big proponent of trusting your instincts and investing in friendships that make you feel comfortable from the outset.
Based on the strength of Earth's gravity and the density and strength of rock, in principle you could make a single conical mountain that stretched between New York and Chicago and soared over 45 kilometers. That's twice the size of Olympus Mons and definitely dwarfs Everest. However, there are a couple of reasons why we can't actually have that humongous of a mountain here on Earth. For one, Earth's crust is made up of continental plates that essentially float in the semi-solid rock of the mantle below. If you add more weight above the surface, they sink lower into the Earth's hot interior, and when they sink far enough, they soften and basically melt. For our conical mountain, that gives a new height limit of just 15 kilometers. As well, the powerful collision of two tectonic plates, which creates mountains in the first place, also fractures and cracks the rock, weakening its structure and exposing it to erosion. Over millions of years, freeze-thaw cycles pry at these cracks, while winds claw at the slopes and streams and glaciers carve deep valleys in the mountainside, all weakening the mountain's support. This can end badly. For example, 3,764-meter tall Aoraki Mount Cook in New Zealand had its top fall off one night in 1991, trimming it down to a 3,754-meter mountain. Given all the factors that conspire to limit the height of mountains, for example, sinking into the Earth's mantle, fractures, and erosion, I wouldn't bet on our tallest mountains getting much taller than they already are.
We've run a few different studies and found that the #1 purchase people say they regret after bank fees is eating out. It's a frequent purchase we make almost every day and is death by 1,000 cuts. A coffee here, a burrito there, it adds up and decreases our ability to save. Back when I lived in New York City, I looked at my expenses and saw that I spent over $2,000 on ride-sharing apps. It was more than my New York City rent. I vowed to make a change. And the next month, I spent $2,000 again. No change, because the information alone didn't change my behavior. I didn't change my environment. So now that I was $4,000 in the hole, I did two things. The first is that I unlinked my credit card from my car sharing apps. Instead, I linked a debit card that only had $300 a month. If I needed more, I had to go through the whole process of adding a new card. And we know that every click, every barrier, changes our behavior. We aren't machines. We don't carry around an abacus every day, adding up what we're spending in comparison to what we wanted. But what our brains are very good at is counting up the number of times we've done something. So I gave myself a limit. I can only use ride-sharing apps 3 times a week. It forced me to ration my travels. I got a handle on my car sharing expenses to the benefit of my husband because of the environmental changes that I did. So get a handle on whatever that purchase is for you and change your environment to make it harder to do so.
Inside Japan's corporations, the culture emphasizes the success of a company as a whole to be more important than any single individual, which might explain why one study found that 63% of Japanese felt guilty for taking paid leave. But perhaps more concerning is this: long work hours don't necessarily mean high productivity. In fact, Japan has the lowest productivity amongst the G7 nations. Earlier I mentioned the term karoshi. It means death by overwork. It's legally recognized by the government and usually is marked by a heart attack, stroke, or suicide due to stress. There's hundreds of cases of karoshi reported annually, although some argue these cases are underreported and that the real number could exceed that by up to 10 times.
An employee of the advertising firm Dentsu jumped to her death in 2015. The cause was said to have been depression caused by overwork.
The case generated widespread attention and renewed calls to change the long working hours and illegal unpaid overtime highly common in Japan.
The firm was fined for violating labor standards because she was reportedly forced to work more than 100 hours of overtime per month.
The company's CEO even resigned over the controversy.
After the death, Dentsu made some changes within the company. One of them, the lights in the office now turn off at 10 p.m. every night in an effort to force employees to leave.
Malaria's ability to resist drugs is one of the reasons success in eradicating it has levelled off. New ways to tackle malaria are being developed, seeking to wipe out the mosquitoes that carry the disease. A gene editing technology called CRISPR is being used to engineer a gene drive. This creates selfish genes that are always passed on to offspring. The aim is to interfere with fertility by driving a gene for sterility through an entire population. As it is passed from generation to generation, the population would be swamped with insects that are unable to reproduce. In theory, they could be driven to extinction. Last year, a team at Imperial College London successfully created a gene drive that wiped out enclosed cohorts of one species of malaria-carrying mosquito. But there is no guarantee that gene drives could work in the many environments where malaria is found in the world, especially in Africa. Humanity has shown that it can control malaria. It has been eradicated in around 35 countries. Currently, the best hope lies in a combination of methods. But in the future, a gene drive may be the most effective solution.
So I spent an hour trying on all these damn jeans, and I walked out of the store, truth, with the best fitting jeans I had ever had. I did better. All this choice made it possible for me to do better. But I felt worse. The reason I felt worse is that with all of these options available, my expectations about how good a pair of jeans should be went up. I had I had no particular expectations when they only came in one flavor. When they came in 100 flavors, damn it, one of them should have been perfect. And what I got was good, but it wasn't perfect. And so I compared what I got to what I expected, and what I got was disappointing in comparison to what I expected. Adding options to people's lives can't help but increase the expectations people have about how good those options will be. And what that's going to produce is less satisfaction with results, even when they're good results.
All the evidence that is related to palliative care these days demonstrates with absolute certainty people live better and they live longer. A seminal article out of the New England Journal of Medicine in 2010, study done at Harvard, friends of mine, colleagues, end-stage lung cancer, one group with palliative care, a similar group without. The group with palliative care reported less pain, less depression. They needed fewer hospitalizations, and ladies and gentlemen, they lived 3 to 6 months longer. If palliative care were a cancer drug, every cancer doctor on the planet would write a prescription for it. Why don't they? This is a space that we will all come to at some point. But this conversation today is not about dying, it is about living. Living based on our values, what we find sacred, and how we want to write the chapters of our lives, whether it's the last or the last 5.
How long does it take from starting something and being grossly incompetent and knowing it to being reasonably good in, hopefully, as short a period of time as possible? So, how long does that take? Here's what my research says. 20 hours. That's it. You can go from knowing nothing about any skill that you can think of. Want to learn a language? Want to learn how to draw? Want to learn how to juggle flaming chainsaws? If you put 20 hours of focused, deliberate practice into that thing, you will be astounded at how good you are. 20 hours is doable. That's about 45 minutes a day for about a month, even skipping a couple days here and there. 20 hours isn't that hard to accumulate. Now, there's a method to doing this, because it's not like you can just start fiddling around for about 20 hours and expect these massive improvements. There's a way to practice intelligently. There's a way to practice efficiently that will make sure that you invest those 20 hours in the most effective way that you possibly can.
Let's imagine a college student being late for class. New Jay, who's her current teacher, learned about nonviolent communication and knows that it begins with a clear observation. During observation, he tries noticing concrete facts, things that happen at that very moment. New Jay jots down that Anne arrived 20 minutes late and that his pulse is up, possibly a sign of stress. When focusing on his feelings, New Jay connects with his heart and can learn to understand various underlying emotions. This is important because what seems to be anger might in fact be sadness. During this step, it is essential to distinguish feelings from thoughts. After class, New Jay shares his observation and explains to Anne that he feels disrespected when someone is late for his class. Knowing his needs is important because it allows him to enrich his life and feel at peace. If we disregard our needs or don't live up to our values, we experience stress and frustration. New Jay tells Anne that they should find a way to respect each other's values and desires. Lastly, there is the request, which clarifies what future New Jay wants for himself and this relationship. Clear requests are hence crucial to a transformative communication. When we ask for concrete actions, we often find creative ways to ensure that everyone's needs are met. New Jay asks Anne not to come to class at all if she happens to run later than 1 minute.
To enjoy a harmonious union with someone, we should ensure that we have plenty of sources of excitement, reassurance, and stimulation outside of them. When we hit problems, we should be able to lean on other supports. The demand that another person compensate us for all that's alarming, wearing, or deficient in our lives is a mechanism for systematically destroying any relationship. Our conflicts and disappointments will at once feel more manageable when we stop asking our partner to function always as our long-lost other half. The more we can survive without a relationship, the greater will be that relationship's chances of survival and fulfillment. We will truly give love a chance when we stop believing that it can single-handedly save us.
Heart and blood vessel diseases still kill more people, not only in this country, but also worldwide than everything else combined, and yet it's completely preventable for almost everybody. It's not only preventable, it's actually reversible. And for the last almost 29 years, we've been able to show that by simply changing diet and lifestyle, using these very high-tech, expensive, state-of-the-art measures to prove how powerful these very simple and low-tech and low-cost interventions can be, like quantitative arteriography before and after a year and cardiac PET scans. We showed a few months ago, we published the first study showing that you can actually stop or reverse the progression of prostate cancer by making changes in diet and lifestyle. Now, there is an epidemic of obesity, 2/3 of adults and 15% of kids. What's really concerning to me is that diabetes has increased 70% in the past 10 years, and this may be the first generation in which our kids live a shorter lifespan than we do. That's pitiful, and it's preventable.
Before the Affordable Care Act came along, 80% of Americans had quality health insurance, like my wife and I, through their employer or through government programs like Medicare and Medicaid. For some, this insurance was far from ideal, as it featured high costs and a limited choice of providers. But overall, this was substantive coverage, which enrollees were by and large satisfied. On the other hand, the other 20% of Americans were either uninsured or faced the prospect of buying insurance in the unstable and discriminatory non-group insurance market. This is a market where it was totally legal for insurers to discriminate against the sick for any reason. Insurers could deny the sick coverage, they could charge them much more than the healthy for insurance, or they could exclude their pre-existing illnesses from coverage. As a result, if you were healthy, you could get health insurance. This defeats the whole notion of health insurance. Health insurance is supposed to protect you against financial risk, not protect your insurance company against the sick. And as a result, people in this market were just one bad gene or one bad traffic accident away from bankruptcy.
In a chapter of Democracy in America entitled Why the Americans Are Often So Restless in the Midst of Their Prosperity, de Tocqueville sketched an enduring analysis of the relationship between high expectations and dissatisfaction, between political equality and envy. He wrote, "When all the prerogatives of birth and fortune have been abolished, when every profession is open to everyone, an ambitious man may think it is easy to launch himself on a great career and feel that he has been called to no common destiny. But this is a delusion which experience quickly corrects. When inequality is the general rule in society, the greatest inequalities attract no attention. But when everything is more or less level, the slightest variation is noticed. That is the reason for the strange melancholy often haunting inhabitants of democracies in the midst of abundance, and of that disgust with life sometimes gripping them even in calm and easy circumstances."
One of the great contributing factors to mental illness is the idea that we should at all costs and at all times be well. We suffer far more than we should because of how long it can take many of us until we allow ourselves to fall properly and usefully ill. In a crisis, our chances of getting better rely to a significant extent on having the right relationship to our illness. An attitude which is relatively unfrightened by our distress, which isn't overly in love with the idea of seeming at all times normal, which can allow us to be deranged for a while, in order one day to reach a more authentic kind of sanity. It will help us immensely in this quest if the images of mental illness we can draw on at this time do not narrowly imply that our ailment is merely a freakish and pitiable possibility. If we can appeal to images that tease out the universal and dignified themes of our state, so that we do not, on top of everything else, have to fear and hate ourselves for being unwell.
To understand the roots of procrastination helps us weaken it. We know where it comes from. I can be aware of and see these dynamics happening in front of me. But another kind of awareness is to gain awareness of what we're feeling. What do approach motives feel like versus avoidance? We know when we're cleaning the fridge in our dorm room the night before the final exam that that's procrastination. But there are other times it's not so clear. Is checking your email procrastination? Is studying or doing the task on the low important item on your list, is that procrastination? A lot of times it is. So the more we know, the greater awareness we have of our tendencies and our motivations, we're more likely to overcome them. So we want to cultivate a stance, an observer stance, to say, what does this feel like? What am I experiencing? What am I thinking? So that we can then actively choose what we want to feel and think and what we're motivated by.
It seems to me that architecture is very much something that causes us both pleasure and trouble. I live in the part of Western London where I think many of the streets where I live, are really, really ugly. And this distresses me every time I walk to a supermarket or walk to a tube. I think, why did they build that? And terribly without architecture. It lasts so long, and if you write a bad book or do a bad play, I will be shocked when it is showed and no one would suffer. A bad building has a serious impact could be hundreds of years on the people around it. And suppose the book arose a little bit from frustration, almost anger, and there is so much bad architecture around. And then I realized if you talk about architecture, you will say why buildings are not more beautiful. And you will say I can use such a word as beauty. That's a really arrogant word. And no one knows what beautiful is. It's all in the eye of the beholder. I couldn't help but think that, actually. Well, that we all attempt to agree that Rome is nicer than Milky King's, and San Francisco has the edge of Frankfurt, so we can make that sort of generalization. Surely there are some things we can say about why a building works or why it doesn't. So the books really attempt to suggest why architecture works when it does, and what might be going to be wrong when it doesn't work.